A Somatic Perspective on the Trauma of Growing Up with Anti-LGBTQ Mistreatment by Payam Gasamlu. As LGBTQ people, we are under assault by the politics of hate in America. We need more than ever to stand up to the right-wing politicians who are working hard to take away our rights. By addressing the painful emotional impact of homophobia, transphobia, and heterosexism, I am trying to raise awareness about the importance of uniting against hate. This presentation takes a somatic perspective on biological impact of homophobia and other hateful acts toward LGBTQ youngsters. For almost 3 decades, I have immersed myself in the life stories of many people of our community who had painful homophobic and transphobic upbringings. Many of the gay men's stories that I have heard are not very different from my own. Regardless of national origin, we are part of a tribe with similar stories of growing up in a homophobic and heterosexist world where our gayness was repeatedly assaulted. We are everywhere, and unfortunately so is homophobia. Many gay men have shared with me that as long as they could recall, they always felt different. They were unable to articulate why they felt that way, and, at the same time, they did not feel safe to talk about it. Some knew this feeling of being different was related to something forbidden. It felt like keeping an ugly secret that I could not even understand, described one person. Other gay men have disclosed to me that this feeling revealed itself in the form of gender non-conformity, which could not be kept secret. Therefore, it made them more vulnerable to homophobic mistreatment at school and often at home. Gay men of color reported even worse experiences due to the additional stress of racism and racial bullying. It is important to understand how repeated hateful acts toward queer youngsters can impact the way their bodies and minds function, including the functioning of their nervous system. This also applies to any LGBTQ child who is a target of hate and abuse. As Peter Levine, the founder of Somatic Experiencing, stated, trauma is not in the event, but in the nervous system. Based on my work with people from different walks of life, I also agree that trauma becomes embodied during a person's life and can affect the working of the autonomic nervous system. Much of the healing from this trauma needs to happen through the body. In particular, the nervous system needs to be regulated. The autonomic nervous system is the part of the nervous system that governs the fight, flight, or freeze instinct and is responsible for the unconscious bodily functions like breathing, digesting food, and regulating the heart rate. It also plays an important role of supplying information from our organs to our brain. The autonomic nervous system is central to our experience of safety, connection with others, and our ability to bounce back from life's overwhelming experiences. The autonomic nervous system can become dysregulated due to the thwarted responses of fight, flight, or freeze in the aftermath of trauma. Stephen Porges, Bessel van der Kolk's, and Peter Levine's research and writings have significantly reworked my understanding of how the nervous system responds to threat and trauma. Drawing from their work and my decades of experience interviewing members of LGBTQ community, it is my understanding the ongoing stress from homophobia or transphobia can activate a youngster's nervous system. The unresolved activation will be stored in the body as bound energy and manifest as trauma symptoms. In other words, under a daily anti-LGBTQ assault, a child's sympathetic system or fight or flight response gets overly activated. Often during such stressful situations, neither fighting nor fleeing can resolve the overwhelming situation, and the thwarted or incomplete fight and flight responses can become trapped within the body and dysregulate the nervous system. Such a dysregulated nervous system is more likely to get stuck on hyperarousal. Anxiety, panic attacks, rage, hyperactivity, mania, hypervigilance, sleeplessness, exaggerated startle response, digestive problems, and many other symptoms are the result of a dysregulated nervous system that is stuck on high or hyperarousal. According to many studies, LGBTQ individuals who experienced harassment showed increased production of the stress hormone cortisol compared to peers in safer environments. This experience of being stuck on high or hyperarousal continuously activates a person's stress response system, which leads to the release of stress hormones. Research in this area has shown overexposure to cortisol and other stress hormones leads to numerous health problems including headaches, oversensitivity to touch or sound, weight gain, heart disease, concentration impairment, and sleep disturbance. On the other hand, there are LGBTQ individuals whose nervous systems are stuck on low or hypoarousal, which can result from being terrorized growing up with no hope of protection. Faced with isolation, confusion, physical violence, and not being valued is too stressful for any youngster to endure, especially when there is no empathic other to help the kid to sort it out. Such experience is often beyond the youngster's window of tolerance. This is when the person completely shuts down, and the mistreated youngster can go into freeze. In other words, the queer youngster suffers in silence with numbness or dissociation as his only available survival mechanism. Stephen Porges, the founder of polyvagal theory, has expanded our view of the vagus nerve, one of the largest nerves in the body and a major part of the parasympathetic system. The word vagus means wandering in Latin. The dorsal vagus is a branch of the vagus nerve, which is a much older part of the nervous system. Dorsal vagus is instrumental in activating the shutdown of the body as discussed in cases of overwhelming fear which can result from anti-LGBTQ mistreatment. This automatic survival mechanism can become a long-standing pattern of how individuals might cope with fear and stress in life. For example, people whose nervous system is stuck on low or hypoarousal when faced with life stresses can default to shutting down, disassociation, chronic isolation, detachment, numbness, and suicidal thoughts. In my work with LGBTQ people, I have noticed when the nervous system gets stuck on freeze, when numbness and detachment become a person-dominant state, that person is more likely to engage in risky behaviors as a temporary relief from inner deadness. Thrill-seeking behaviors such as sexual acting out, excessive gambling, and crystal meth use are ways some gay or queer individuals escape the emotional flatness that results from experiencing the hypoarousal state. The same behaviors can also be used to cope with ongoing activation of the fight or flight response. One person might turn to substance abuse to escape his inner deadness, and another person might use it to dampen his anxiety that often results from being stuck in a state of hyperarousal. Trauma does not have to be a life sentence. For those of us who have had painful struggles with homophobia, life after the closet needs to include dealing with memories of homophobic mistreatment that can lie dormant in our body. Recovery from it needs to include regulating the nervous system and restore inner balance. In Body Keeps the Score, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk writes about a body-centered approach to healing which allows the body to have experiences that deeply and viscerally contradict the helplessness, rage, or collapse that result from trauma. How far we have come in our struggle for equal rights reflects how brave we are as a community. Our bravery can continue by facing traumas we experienced growing up in oppressive environments that did not nurture our true essence. Not every LGBTQ person felt traumatized growing up, but those who did can benefit from the vitality and the sense of liberation that comes with incorporating somatic therapy work as part of the healing process.